Well, hello and welcome to the History Makers Leadership Podcast. My name is Daniel, and I'm incredibly excited to be joined again with Norval Trindade. Norval, it's great to have you back, man.
It's great to be back in the podcast. We missed recording these episodes. These are great conversations, great opportunities for us to look into some issues in leadership. And it's amazing how much we grow by just having these conversations.
Oh, man, I'm telling you, there is so much good in just having leadership conversations with other believers that are trying to navigate life and leadership. And I really appreciate you sitting down and not, kind of navigating some of these things. And I'm excited for today's topic of silos because I know that's something, every organization deals with in to different degrees. And it's something even we are trying to navigate and look at for ourselves, saying, how do we operate a little bit in silos in our own practice?
Absolutely. And precisely, the value of these conversations is that we get to process this. So I think we need a disclaimer right off the bat that we're not too expert in organizational leadership or silos. We might be expert in silos because we've seen it happen to us.
Sure, right.
For experience, but we are fellow journeymen.
That's right.
In this journey of trying to lead with excellence.
That's right.
And leading teams.
Yeah.
We call ourselves leaders of leaders at
right.
ILI. We equip leaders of leaders. And so
well, and to give everybody a little bit of a context, Norval, you are ILI's vice president of training, and that means really ultimately we're helping to navigate and lead 100 national teams around the world, and those groups of people and navigating the complexities of different languages and cultures and all those kinds of things. But even within our internal team, right? There are teams within the international office that exist for operational purposes and those kinds of things. And there's this moment where whether that's the international groups or the local operational groups, these kinds of, again, we call them silos, can begin to form. But what have you, if we've been preparing for this, what have you seen as kind of some helpful definitions or frameworks for helping us understand what is a silo? Like, what is that thing?
Right. Well, first of all, this is something that organizational leadership experts have been talking about for, 20, 30 years or something. Yeah. But honestly, as a leader, you experienced this as your leadership grows.
Okay.
As your organizational grows, because I read this definition, and I'm going to actually read it. It comes from a publication called the Business Dictionary. It was quoted by Forbes, saying it's a mindset present when certain departments or sectors do not wish to share information with others in the same company or organization. This type of mentality will reduce efficiency in the overall operation, reduce morale, and may contribute to the demise of an otherwise productive company culture. So it has the potential of being disastrous.
It sounds pretty negative. It doesn't sound like something we want.
Sounds ominous, doesn't it?
It does.
And I suppose, I don't know the history of the term, but
Sure.
We all know silos in agriculture and in grain storage.
Right.
You keep your rice in one silo, you keep your beans in another one.
Right.
And if you want to make rice and beans, you have to pull from
both together.
From both of them together. But while they are in their silos, there will never be rice and beans. I guess to me, that's kind of how I unpacked being from a culture that eats rice and beans just about every day.
That's right.
That's how I unpacked this idea that different departments in an organization can be so focused in what they've got to do and for various reasons,
right,
that then silos happen where everybody's doing their thing, but the thing of the organization isn't being done, or
right,
the vision of the organization isn't being fulfilled, I guess.
So I wonder then, as I think through this idea of silos, I wonder how much of that term is really more of a to put it in like medical terms, like a series of symptoms rather than the underlying root cause, right? So I'm curious if silos are this kind of isolation of information or resources into disparate groups within an organization, right? So let's use a church for example. Maybe the church has a ministry for homeless. Well, all of the resources for that are isolated from the resources for the youth ministry, which is isolated from the right, so on and so forth. So if it's information and resources that are kind of being isolated and segmented or segregated from one another, that's a symptom of something else. So what kind of gets us to that point, right? Like I don't think we naturally end up there per se. But what are some of the things that you see that can lead us to that point?
Well, actually, it's interesting, Daniel, because when we were having our consultation with an organization called the Best Christian Workplaces, and we were talking about this very subject, I think I've heard him say that the gravity pull is towards silos.
Oh, okay.
So we have to kind of fight against it to create a culture that does not, especially I believe especially as an organization grows. So in a way, it's a force that we fight against, that tendency to focus, which, you know what, it starts as a good thing. You're focused on your job.
Yeah.
So I lead the training department at ILI.
That's right.
I focus on training. I'm not interested, I'm speaking negatively. I'm not interested in what admin and office manager, management, that kind of stuff is doing. I may not be interested in what the advancement, that's the fundraising part, is doing. So I'm so focused. I've got a job to do. I've got leaders to train. I've got goals.
Right.
And so if we're not careful, that can happen in our lives. Now, in companies, one of the things I've read is that a lot of silos stem from competition. Managers feel, we talk about a scarcity mentality. Yeah. There's only so much resources to go around.
That's right.
So I hoard what I have in my department. I don't share information. You know, God forbid I help that other department and they will then start pulling resources away from mine. I guess that's...
So I get the mental image of, Nehemiah building the wall, right? And everybody built the section of the wall that was right outside of their home. And, here's the thing. It doesn't matter how well my section of the wall is built. If the section just down the way isn't built well, then it's still going to be a detriment to me, right? And so I wonder... if some of to your point earlier, if some of that natural kind of gravity towards siloing is really also a symptom of growth, right? As we grow, I increasingly need to do the thing that I'm doing and not all the other things that I'm doing, right? And so I need to continue to hyper focus on this one element because it's growing, right? This one thing that I used to be able to do three things is now I can only do this one thing. I think of a relatively small church, right? With 30 or 40 people. Well, that one pastor could probably lead it sufficiently, but once you hit 120 or 150 or 200, well, maybe that one pastor can't do that anymore. They can't maintain enough relationships, and so somebody else comes in and maybe helps with youth or helps with seniors or something else, right? And you begin to build out that. Well, as you grow, you begin to almost conversely focus your energy and efforts, and that can lead us to beginning to again, focus our attention and time. And so maybe that kind of explanation of that natural gravity toward siloing.
Well, and also, as you divide the tasks, it's like the wall that you've described. You've divided the wall. But what if now, Daniel, you build your part of the wall so well, it's beautiful and sturdy. I look at it and say, wait a minute. He's got all of these bricks, so there's only so many bricks. I won't be able to get enough bricks, so I resent you for doing that. Now, that is a symptom. What happens next is that in the next thing that we have to do together, I am protective. I want to make sure you don't. Now, this is facetious, but I make sure you don't get enough bricks. So I kind of hoard the bricks, all the bricks on this one side of the wall, so that I know that you're going to pull more. And that's when that competition starts happening. And that's when we're making jokes about bricks, but when that competition happens, I hoard information.
Yeah.
And I don't share it with you. Now, all of a sudden, you don't have all the pieces of information that you need to make wise decisions.
Well, and I think I think you're right to identify that heart position is that belief in a scarcity, right? It's that heart position that says, God, your provision won't be sufficient. Therefore, I must be responsible for. I must bear a greater sense of responsibility, or some greater sense of, I guess, control over. Maybe that's the more clear term. I feel this need to control that circumstance a bit more, or those resources a bit more, or that information a bit more. Because oftentimes it's the information and the resources that are tied together, right? It's well, I know where to get the bricks, or I know how to get a hold of that key relationship or that key individual who actually has the asset, the resources, the knowledge, and so we begin to, again, kind of squabble over those things, not realizing a weakness in any part of this wall is going to be a weakness that we all endure. Right?
What do they say? A chain is only as strong as its weakest link.
That's
right? But here's another aspect of it, Daniel, that I want to throw to you to kind of reflect upon, because on the building of the wall, and it's cool that we're using Nehemiah and the building of the wall, because he's such a great mobilizer.
He is.
And such a great leader and vision caster. And I guess one of the reasons where maybe you and I wouldn't compete for resources or feel like we were competing for resources,
right,
is because there was a leader at the top who was casting vision.
Yeah.
And remember, he said, our God will fight for us. He is the one who've ordained this. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times on silos, poor leadership will cause that insecurity.
That's right. I think about it this way. I think sometimes that poor leadership can lead to decentralized planning. So it's I'm starting to plan my wall, and I'm using, again, to use this of bricks, I'm turning the bricks this direction, right? And maybe, I instead of placing my bricks, kind of long way on top of long way, maybe I do it short way on top of short way, because, well, maybe I think that's more aesthetically pleasing, or I have some other reason that I think it's better, right? Maybe it's more structurally rigid. But you come along and you go, hey man, we don't have enough bricks for you to do it that way. I need you to do it this way, right? Well, that's a shared vision, a shared understanding of the resources at play. And to put it in some practical terms, maybe that's, hey, I have money to purchase food. I can use that for the food bank at my church or the student ministry at my church. Which group gets that resource? Well, it might be that they both get it. One, whatever's used by the one group gets passed down, or whatever gets used, doesn't get used by the one group gets passed over. But both groups need to be a part of that conversation, rather than doing that in a decentralized way. That for the vision to be shared, that communication and planning has to be done in a communal way.
Yes. And again, I keep coming back to an important lesson. I call it the most important leadership lesson that I learned during the pandemic.
Okay.
Because it's something I heard during the pandemic. It does have to do with the pandemic. It was by Andy Stanley, pastor of North Point Church. He says, in a moment of crises, and I would even expand that in general, it says, what people need from leadership more than anything is clarity. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, we got a whiteboard at the training department, and I think it was Sandra Hiltz that works for us there that wrote, "Clarity is kindness," mm-hmm. And it is. And so that clarity about, again, to go back to the bricks, funny example that clarifies how the bricks are going to be laid,
right?
Because of the leader has studied and mm-hmm. and measured and took inventory of all the stones and bricks that we have to build the wall of Jerusalem. and you couldn't build them this way, but you can build them this way. That clarity, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And then that would clarify a lot of things for the lower levels of leadership.
So as I'm listening, if I'm in this third chair and you know they're listening in on this, I'm thinking, okay, if I'm experiencing growth, I might have a tendency towards silos because as the expansiveness of our vision and mission grows, my tendency is to grow more specific in task, right? Or if I'm looking at our team and we're planning and we're thinking through things in a segregated or separated fashion, I'm feeling that. What do you think is as we talk through these resources, do you think that silos are a natural consequence of changing in resources? I mean, I look at the economy right now and I think to myself, okay, not super strong economic circumstances globally, right? There's certainly some uncertainty, a couple of pretty significant regional wars going on, some global uncertainty taking place. That could lead to a position where there are resource cuts that have to take place. Is that a context where silos would naturally begin to form?
Well, it's a good question that I don't think I have an answer for it.
Okay.
But going back to what you said in the beginning, I think it has more to do with the perception of scarcity than an actual scarcity.
That's a really good point.
I guess if we're really, sometimes I have this post-apocalyptic imagination scenario where society collapsed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, I no longer can afford the luxury of working for an organization that travels around the world and trains leaders. And I have, and I played this scenario in my mind that I had to turn the back of my house, cut down the forest and start growing something.
Yeah.
That is real scarcity.
Sure.
Right there. And in moments like that, you move into a survival mode. But what we're talking here is about leadership in growing organizations.
That's right.
Of course, we're a nonprofit, and nonprofits deal with limited resources all the time. But there might be a difference between considering that resources are limited and a scarcity mentality where scarcity mentality generates that sense of competition. Whereas we're all in this together, the resources are not enough.
Right.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's discuss it. Which brings me to another issue in silos, which is silos happen because of poor communication.
Yeah.
So resources might be limited, but I wonder if a good horizontal communication between departments, which is lack of horizontal communication between departments, is one of the causes of silos. If that communication is good, if we're all collaborating truly, the true scarcity can be overcome.
Well, I mean, I think you make an incredible point there because it's actually in the context of genuine scarcity that sometimes the most creative solutions are developed, right? That's sometimes when those those most again, scarcity is a birthing place for innovation, right? And new ideas and contexts to take place. And so I think you're right. I think it's the heart position of am I operating from a resource poor context, or am I operating from a scarcity mindset? And I think as leaders, we carry a responsibility to communicate in such a way that communicates clearly which context we want to live in. And then it's the co-accountability of all the people in that horizontal communication pipeline to say, hey, guys, no, like that's a scarcity mindset. Yeah, our resources are small. Okay, they're limited. But you know what? The reality is they're limited everywhere. Everyone's resources are limited in some way, shape, or form, but that doesn't mean that they're leading and living from a position of scarcity that requires them to begin hoarding for themselves, right? Or their own pet projects or initiatives. Rather, it's again, my wall can be 10 bricks deep, but if your wall is only one layer deep and that's not enough, then that's not enough.
We're all in danger.
We're all in danger. And so it's recognizing the collaborative nature of that. And I think you're right. I think a lot of that comes down to clear communication from the leader. But I think it's incumbent upon the leader and all of the members to communicate with each other those same messages, right? To repeat and replay. Hey, no. Like this is how we operate. This is what we're doing. Remember, this is our goal right now, and sharing and setting some of those things together. What are some of the other contexts where you think or see siloing could be that symptom of some other issue?
Well, some of the people that study this a lot more than we do talk about the way, and I think we've seen this with us at ILI, at our organization, the way the organization, or I guess the org chart,
Okay.
the way the organizational structure is designed can contribute to this. And so that's one thing. Another thing that we face is that some articles point out is just geographical distance.
Okay.
One department is in New York, the other department is in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Well, it's natural. They have to be very intentional at communicating. At ILI, we span the entire globe.
That's right.
Just to give our listeners an idea, we are led by a global executive team that encompasses 12 global regions. Yeah. There is one time of the day that we can meet with significant sacrifice to the leaders, to our leaders who are in the Western United States, who have to get up at 6 a.m. Mm-hmm. For us here, it's at 9 a.m.
Right.
And for our leaders in Asia, they have to wait to go to sleep after 11 because it's from 10 to 11 in the night.
Yeah.
And so that in and of itself requires a lot of intentional effort. Otherwise, it will encourage silos. And one of the silos that we are trying to break in our organization is to encourage this horizontal communication between our international global leaders to avoid one of the things that happen with silos, which is the duplication of efforts, where two teams are doing the same thing, maybe in different ways, whereas if they had collaborated, they would find a way to do it better.
Yeah.
And
one rather, kind of public example of this for a company, Google, right? Google has two different assets. One is called Google Assistant, and the other is called Gemini. And they're two different ways that they're going about having a virtual personal assistant for their customers. Well, those two teams, at least at this moment in history, don't appear to be doing a lot of working together because they're developing them on two parallel paths rather than on a unified path working together. And I think I offer that only as an example of ways that as we begin to look, we'll see those silos. And I think, to your point, sometimes that is an org chart thing. Sometimes that's an accountability piece. Like where and how does accountability work in the structure of the organization such that there is accountability for collaboration and cross communication. But I think also there can be perceived or experienced siloing because of the introduction of a new product and the end of an old product, right? When they start making a new car and so now everybody's working on that one, but well, eventually that car is going to die off and nobody's going to make that model anymore. And somebody has to be working on it while it goes away. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're out of a job. It just means they maybe are moving to a new role or new position. And so, so if these are some of the contexts for silos, Norval, and we've hit on it in some general ways. In your reading, what were some of the ways you saw that as a leader I can avoid those, and what are some of the ways that I can correct them?
I read something very interesting that works well for bigger organizations, but I think it works for even an organization as ours with, 20 some employees and a few hundred volunteers worldwide that are leading. We have thousands of volunteers, but we have probably a couple hundred that are leading our teams around the world. They call it finding connectors.
Okay.
Finding there in every organization, there are these people that are naturally connected to more than one of the groups that are siloing. And so a good manager, a good leader will tap into these people and I don't know, maybe appoint them, give them a special task to start working in this. It seems, Daniel, like there's quite a consensus that this horizontal communication, lateral communication between departments is a thing that can help develop or change the scenario where there's more collaboration, less isolation, which then increases productivity and all of that.
I love it, the thought of identifying the people that God has gifted as connectors, as relators, and using that element of the body of Christ to their strength, to build bridges, to build connection, right? I think of key leaders, Tony is one, where he's a connector. That's what he does, right? I think of another on our board. He's just a connector. Right. That's how God wired him to be. And so building collaboration for him is just fulfilling his God-given design and heart. And similarly, I think if our silos are in a bad enough place, as a leader, we should be looking to say, okay, who are the peacemakers on our team? Right. I've got a dear friend, Justin. He's an incredible peacemaker because he yearns for peace and he's good at establishing and developing peace between people. And as I reflect on that, I think you're right. It's finding those people within the organization that God has placed on our team and mobilizing them with those special gifts and tasks. Hey, will you help to build a bridge between these people? Right? If that means maybe you go to lunch with them or maybe you sit down and have a cup of tea with them or whatever, but help to build some of these bridges. I think that's a beautiful way and a Christ-like way of helping to reconcile the siloing that can happen in any organization.
And another thing that I read, it was interesting because I had a little bit of an eureka moment on this. I don't know about you, but I'm one of those people that are half believer, half skeptical about team building exercises that we do when we go to organizational retreats and places like that. You all get together and you pull the rope and you play tug of war or you play some sort of game that kind of encourages you. Go on a hike together to build a team. And then there are the extreme ones that, climb up on poles and things but here's the thing. One way to combat silos, to correct silos, or to avoid them is to develop relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And so those exercises, though a lot of times they don't seem to produce any immediate result, but they produce a camaraderie that is going to go from this outdoors place to the boardroom, to the workstation, to the office, to the floor plant, whatever your business is, or to the church, to the Sunday school.
When I was a youth pastor, I used to tell my small group leaders or my Sunday school class teachers, right? I would tell them, your goal is to build an inside joke, right? Is to build some kind of a shared memory or experience that when you refer back to it, everyone remembers, everyone feels united around that thing. And I think your point is valid. One of the ways that we can naturally go about that is the relational way that Christ gave us of helping to walk in relationship with someone and say, hey, we have all of these shared experiences. Let's look at these things. And out of that shared experience and relationship, now let's talk about this sense of isolation that we're feeling, whether that's intentional or unintentional, whether that's over information or resources, whatever it is that's causing that sense of siloing, that sense of division. Let's come together so that, it's not a silo of rice and beans, but it's rice and beans, right? Together.
Daniel, we talked about, we heard a story this very week about how one of our leaders was able to, over many years, encourage and build a team of leaders, ILI leaders, in a country where severe restriction to the gospel exists, by basically going to visit them around Christmas for several years.
That's right.
And just being there with them.
Right.
And then after many years, those visits turned into trust, which turned into a deepened relationship, which turned into collaboration. And the result was that recently they were able to do a very successful training event for leaders, in a place where not only there's a lot of hardship and difficulty, but they had not been able to do anything because that group was isolated, siloed in their geography and in their struggles. So that the power, I think we cannot overestimate the power of just friendships into fostering that collaboration that does away with silos.
Man, I think how sweet that Christ would give us those relationships and those opportunities to establish that, and then to overcome some of those obstacles that come. Any other kind of closing thoughts for us as we wrap up this particular topic and looking at silos and how to overcome them and anything like that?
No new thought. It just occurred to me that when asked what was the greatest commandment, Jesus said, "Love your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and your neighbor as yourself."
That's right.
And like a lot of stuff that we talk about, it comes down to love your neighbor as yourself. Or as Jesus said, love your brother, love each other as I have loved you.
Yeah.
And it is about leading with love.
Yeah.
It's sometimes interesting and awkward to talk about love in the context of a corporate leadership, but hey, we serve a God who loved us and gave himself for us.
That's right.
We are called to be loving in all of our relationships. And I think if love covers a multitude of sins, maybe it's the perfect healing for the sin of siloing.
There you go. There you go. Well, Norval, I love that. And look, if you're a leader out there and you're reflecting on these things and maybe your heart was just pricked a little, I want to encourage you. The International Leadership Institute, we're here to help navigate those kinds of things. We want to connect you to resources to help you grow in your intimacy with God, understand servant leadership, learn about things like the power of vision and how to clearly or compellingly communicate the vision that God has given you so that your teams can experience the success that God desires for you as you accomplish the vision and mission he's given you. I want to point you to the iliteam.org website. There you're going to be able to find different resources and assets that can help you navigate those things, and you'll discover the 8 core values of leaders who are genuinely shaping the course of history. So thank you so much for being part of this. Norval, thank you for helping us to see silos and to bring it back to that core message, love God and love others.
Oh, it's been a joy to talk about this. The great thing about those who are watching or listening to us and the resource that you've just pointed out is that we are in multiple languages.
That's right.
And in pretty much every continent in the world. We're not in Antarctica, so if you live in the South Pole, we probably will challenge you to start your own team, but we don't have one there. But we do have activities and training going on all over the world, and we would love to equip and partner with folks that are participating with us in this conversation.
Amen. Thanks for joining.